it appears that it's quite short periods that you would step into office. And it leaves one with the question with how much can you actually do during that time, and whether when you do step into that position for that brief period, do you know what responsibilities you should assume, and is there a discussion that happened prior to you taking office?
Prior to the National Commissioner or any commander, even myself, if I will be out of office, it is a norm that you will have to, either in writing or otherwise, inform the person that will take the responsibility to ensure continuity of the work, take him or her through what will be the expectations of the acting, if there are matters that will require attention during the period of the incumbent absence, then those will be discussed. And this is so to ensure that there is efficiency and operational continuity in the service, whether it is for 3 days or it is for 3 weeks, as I've indicated, the longest will be 3 weeks or more. There is a need for that meeting to happen so that you receive a proper handing over. And the same will happen when the incumbent resumes duty. In this case, when the National Commissioner comes back, the same meeting will happen to brief him on the matters that I have dealt with throughout his absence. And if there are matters that I have signed off, authorized, or approved, that list will be made available and the handing over certificate will be signed between myself and the National Commissioner.
Now, the time that you were acting as National Commissioner in December 2024, when the minister issued the directive, the period which you were going to act for was from 31st December 2024 to 13 January 2025. And as General Musikiri indicated earlier, you said that you would also be required to attend to your responsibilities as DNC. Now, during the time when the minister issued the directive and while General was acting as National Commissioner, what else was on your plate at the time? And I know you deal with it in your statement in paragraph 12 of the main statement and paragraph 10 of the supplementary statement.
Thank you, Advocate. Given the gravity of the policing operations, I continued to function my duties. And at the time, it is when we were at the apex of Operation Festive Season. So we were in the period, we segment the times of every operations into before, during, and after the operation. So at the time of the 31st, we were in the during phase of the operation. And prior to the 31st, myself and the other 2 deputy national commissioners, the minister and the deputy ministers and the national commissioner, shall have crisscrossed the country in evaluating the operations, the program which my office often draft to ensure that all the operations in the country are monitored and evaluated as they are planned. Therefore, a week prior to the 31st, myself, National Commissioner of the South African Police Service, and the Minister of Police, we were clubbed together to visit 3 provinces. This is the allocated number of provinces to ensure that we don't run around all 9 provinces for efficiency. Therefore, each minister and the deputy minister will have 3 provinces to visit. I was in the group of the minister and the national commissioner, and precisely because of my position as the person who drafts the operational plans, who draft this particular program of visiting the provinces. I will be with the team that will explain to the minister what is happening. We visited Eastern Cape, we proceeded to Western Cape, and we ended in KZN, the period of which we parted ways with the minister on the 28th after attending a funeral of one of the slain members in that part of KwaZulu-Natal. I came back to Gauteng in Pretoria, where I am stationed, and the National Commissioner resumed his leave on the 31st. At the time, it is the time that we have the heightened operation of Operation Valumkoti. Topical at the time was the Stilfontein issue. We shall have visited Stilfontein on the number of occasions with the minister prior to the 31st. And on the 31st, I had a operational visit in Stilfontein, and there was a media briefing that we had to undertake with the colleagues from DPM, Department of Minerals and Petroleum Resources. Upon coming back from Stilfontein, after concluding my tour of duty at Stilfontein, I went back to Pretoria to prepare for the operation in Gauteng, which was to resume at 1700 hours. I must indicate that if the operation is at 1700 hours, it means the parade should be at least 30 minutes before that time. So around 1600 hours, I was in Gauteng in preparation for the parade and the briefing of what will be happening in that evening. The festive period, especially the 31st, poses significant dangers associated in an increase of persons in public spaces, including the violent conduct, alcohol abuse, and exposing vulnerability, particularly of women and children. Therefore, it was important and imperative for me, as not only the acting national commissioner, but as the person responsible for operations in the country. And I often attend either one of the busiest provinces during this time. If I am lucky and the national commissioner is around, we will visit together. So we were in Gauteng. The duties that I undertook from 1700 hours on the 31st until 5 o'clock the next morning. Only reported on duty after receiving all the reports from the National Operational Coordination Center that everything and all the public celebrations have concluded. And I don't want to say the dust has settled down, but at least people are back at their safe spaces.
Just to the period that you were with the National Commissioner and the Minister, you've indicated that that was in December, and the last day you spent together was on the 28th of December. During that time, was there any conversation between either yourself and the Minister or between yourself and the National Commissioner in relation to the PKTT or the disbandment?
Chairperson, not at all. Advocate, we, as I have indicated, that we are attending a funeral of one of the members. The discussion or whatever talk, conversation that would have been undertaken in my presence, it was general discussion over what was happening at the time and the continuation of the Operation Festive Season. At no stage was the mention of PKTT or any attempts to have any directive on PKTT, neither from the minister nor from the National Commissioner. I think my commander, my direct commander, is the National Commissioner. At the time, National Commissioner did not mention anything in relation to the PKTT.
Now, we know that the minister subsequently, on the 31st of December, after your operation in KZN and in the Eastern Cape issued the directive, and you've indicated this happened on the 31st of December. You've indicated that you were busy with your operations or continued with your festive operations in Gauteng province. So at which point did you become aware of the minister's directive?
Thank you, Advocate. I only became aware of the email on the 2nd of January when I was back in the office. And I must indicate here that upon the investigation on the 2nd, and the other thing that has drawn my attention to the directive was the media inquiry that was forwarded to me by the national spokesperson. And I think at the time, all media houses, News 24 already published the directive of the disbandment of the PKTT. It has then required of me as the then acting national commissioner to investigate and to want to understand whether this is the truth of what is on the media space. And subsequent, I have received a WhatsApp message from the national spokesperson on the same matter. It was later in the evening, if I'm not mistaken, it was around 18, if not past 1800 hours. Then the first thing, the investigation of the team resumed at that time, and I was informed when I get into the office the next morning of the existence of the letter. And I also noticed at that time that the letter was also emailed to me as it was sent to the National Commissioner and the staff in the National Commissioner's office.
And you have indicated the list of people to whom the directive were issued. All of this is in paragraph 14 and up to paragraph 17 of your statement. So when you became aware of the letter on the 2nd of January 2025, General, what was your reaction to it? What was going through your mind, and how did you view this directive?
To be honest and frank, I became confused. I wasn't unsure. I was also surprised, and I questioned the authenticity of the directive as I could not believe the content, and precisely because of the tone of the letter. For me, it was unexpected, and in particular, the National Commissioner, we had a discussion on the matters to attend to, and the date was just too close from the time that the National Commissioner was to start the leave and the date of the letter that perhaps the National Commissioner have forgotten to mention this during our discussion. And I took time to interrogate, looking at various other issues that this directive will have, how it was conveyed. And I think most importantly was the fact that it was already leaked to the media when we have not yet dealt with the matter internally. So what I did was to call the immediate staff of the Office of the National Commissioner, which I normally work with in the absence of the National Commissioner. They will serve the office because it is me continuing with the Office of the National Commissioner to interrogate whether it is authentic, whether we have received the letter. And yes, it was confirmed. And I was then made to see for myself that the email was sent on the 31st of December at around 17:20. You shall recall, Advocate, that I said at the time, it is when the operations were already underway in Gauteng. And the addresses of the letter was from the Minister's Chief of Staff, Mr. Cedric Nkabinde, and he has sent the email to the National Commissioner who's on leave, General Masemula, to myself, understanding that he was aware that the National Commissioner is on leave and I am acting, because ordinarily, if the mail is meant for the National Commissioner, it will not come to me. But the understanding at the time was that it is sent to me because of my position as the acting National Commission. It was also sent to Major General Sibola and to Brigadier Litoko. Major General Sibola was at the time working in the office of the National Commissioner as the Executive Secretariat, and Brigadier Litoko is the PA of the National Commissioner. This was sent to other 5 people, CC'd to them. The main was the 4 of us, and it was also sent to the minister's advisor, Mr. Vusi Pikoli, or Advocate Vusi Pikoli, Ms. Mokhosi, who is the minister's communication director, Mr. Mtembu CU, as well as Mlandu. And then there was the 5th addressee that also received the same mail, which reflected as home13404@gmail.com. So these were the 5 people alongside myself, National Commissioner, and the 2 members in the National Commissioner's office who have received the email.
So after you received the email, did you then get in touch with the National Commissioner, and what were your subsequent instructions from the National Commissioner?
As I've indicated that I was concerned about this email, the leak thereof, and the tone, after establishing the correctness that indeed that such email was sent, I then inquire from the office staff of the National Commissioner, which is the Executive Secretariat, how the matter was dealt with, whether they have become aware of the letter on the 31st. And for me, it was because they were aware that I am busy with the operations with the agency of the letter, they could have acted on the letter or not. And yes, the general confirmed that on receipt, they did send a WhatsApp message to the National Commission. The next thing that I did, because I want to reiterate the issue of the tone of the letter. What I did at that point in time was to get guidance and be advised. Normally, when I am acting, I will not unnecessarily contact the National Commissioner, because my understanding is that he takes leave because he wants to rest. Therefore, the matters that he has left me to deal with, I will deal with them unless there is a need to contact him, any critical issue that will require him. With the gravity that the letter will have to the organization, I found it necessary at that time that I need to get guidance from the National Commissioner. I need to also get guidance because at the time there was already a media hype in this particular matter, including the inquiry that General Mukhonazi and the Chief of Staff were in a telephonic conversation, and General Mukhonazi might have said some threatening words in that. That is how it was portrayed in the media at the time. So there were 2 issues that instantly triggered me to call the National Commissioner. And the first call, he did not pick up. I continued to establish facts. And when he realized my call, he called back and we discussed the matter, which he then indicated to me that he did receive the WhatsApp, but he did not pay much attention to that WhatsApp because of the fact that he's on leave. And then he guided on how to deal with the matter.
Just before you, General, you get to what you then subsequently did after your conversation with the National Commissioner, you've indicated that the letter of the minister was leaked to the media before you even became aware that you were part of the persons to whom the email was sent. Do you know how the email got leaked through the media or to other platforms? And I also want to maybe hear your view on, you've mentioned in paragraph 16 that there was a foreign email address that you didn't know, which is the Gmail account. Do you know whose email address that is? Have you subsequently discovered whose email address that is? And do you know how it was leaked to the media?
I do not know who the email belonged to, except that the chief of staff of the minister, Mr. Nkabinde, did indicated the knowledge of the email address. This is part of the investigation that I was doing at the time that myself and the National Commissioner was conversing on this matter. As I was struggling to get hold of him immediately, what I did was to establish how, including the WhatsApp that the secretariat, executive secretariat sent, he sent it out as to whom did she send, and there was a proof that it went from her to the National Commissioner only, and she indicated that she could have contacted me, but she needed guidance as well, because that was the first day of a National Commissioner being out of office. So part of the investigations that I was doing from the second until this time that now we are on the telephone conversation with the National Commissioner and having the staff in my office was to follow through how this communique went out and what could be the possible leak of the email to the media, and who could have communicated this, because it was on the News 24, just to follow up and check who will be the journalist that has communicated this. And the spokesperson as well sent me the media inquiry around 1800 the previous day, and she was also in my office. So we were doing those follow-ups just to check how the mail leaked to the media. And I recall previously when I saw emails of the organization being sent to the private emails, I will engage the people who are the senders of the email just to make sure that we avoid this type of leakages. So I still do not know even today who the email belonged to, but I'm just forgetting. I think I did call the chief of staff and he did explain who the email belongs to.
Now, in your statement, General, you indicate that in paragraph 27, that you instructed Brigadier Litoko to send 3 emails to various heads that would be affected by the director. Was that on the instruction of the National Commissioner?
Instruction, I will rather opt to say the advice. Remember, I call him for advice and for guidance, because it was for the first time that something of this nature happens when I'm acting. I think I acted 5 or more times before this particular issue came, and I wanted to understand. So the guidance that the National Commissioner gave, I conveyed it immediately with the office of the minister, the PA of the National Commissioner who was assisting me at that time, which is Brigadier Litoko, to then continue after the guidance of the National Commissioner that he will deal with the matter when he comes back, because if you read that directive, it required the initial presentation to be made on mid-January. So it said mid-January. So my interpretation and analysis of that was that it was a calculated period that by this time the National Commissioner will be back in office. So when he said other nitty-gritties in this particular a communique will be dealt with when I come back. In the meantime, he requested that I can give the directives to start preparing what the directive wanted. Remember, I said, he said to me, I received the WhatsApp, but I did not pay much attention to it until now that I see you guys are calling me on the same matter. And I was not the only person who called the National Commissioner in relation to the same matter.
In paragraph 25 of your main statement, General, you indicate that General Sibiya also approached the National Commission, got in contact with the National Commissioner in relation to the directive. And then you also say that he sidelined you. Could you maybe elaborate on what you mean by that?
As I was busy with this junior staff that was in my office, my colleague, which is a norm, normally we will converge at the boardroom with National Commissioner at the beginning